With a great deal of huffing and panting, Braggett Big Talker hauled himself out of the sea of grots and up onto a jutting rock. The passageway through which his army now searched would do nicely for some big yellin' with a high ceiling and lots of space for echoes. He took a deep breath and let loose.
"Come on, you zoggin' slackers! Get moving!"
The command shot up and down the passageway with the force of a rabid mangler squeak. With each word that punched its way past the eardrums of the pathetic layabouts around him, he felt a wild rush of power jolting around his brain pan and heightening his frenzy ever further. Some of the grots running nearest to him tripped and fell at the sheer volume of his words, only to be crushed underfoot by the ones behind them.
"Do you want them trucks crushing up your ankles?"
he howled, green face framed by the wicked teeth of his squick-skull armor. Despite the surge of complaining, no one dared to slow down. Every so often, a squig would bounce past the gibbering horde, and Braggett offered them a shout or two of encouragement to make them extra boingy and enthusiastic. From the far end of the passage came a series of yelps. They rippled through the horde, and Braggett skidded to a halt just in time to see waves of grots slamming into the backs of those in front. A clamor of groans and complaints broke out until Braggett's piercing screech cut through it again.
"What ya doing, you githeads? Keep on running!"
A smudge of red wove through the crowd as Snorsnap Squig Tamer yanked his excited mount to a stop in front of his glorious leader.
"Oi, boss,"
Snorsbat said, correcting himself before Braggett scowled.
"The scouts are back, and they found another of them horrible Yumi layers. This one's mega shiny and blocking the entire way forward. The lads reckon you should take a look. Again?"
Braggett bubbled with fury as they began to clear a path through the dazed runners.
"This is getting ridiculous!"
With a lot of sproinging, shouting, and filthy insults, the pair cleared the army and followed the scouts up the rest of the passageway, taking to the shadows this time. At the lip of the passageway, 2 dead Yumis were slumped where the scouts had sneakily offed them. They wore lurid orange fabric and armor so shiny that it made Braggett's eyes hurt. But the true surprise lay past them as he squinted into the light. A great set of glass steps ahead of them descended into a sweltering cavern beyond. Pillars of twisted glass stretched from floor to twinkling ceiling. Each one was carved with images of strange surface creatures. Huts had been built down the sides of the walls, all structured around a central plaza displaying dozens of glass warrior sculptures. Some stunties and pointy ears, but mostly shiny Yumis with their zigzags and hammers. All were lit magically from within by flickery fire magic. People milled about below, basking in the orange light and going about the daily business. It was all so eye-searingly pretty. Braggett fumed all the way back to where the army waited, muttering a steady stream of obscenities that had even his underlings keeping their distance. By the time he reached the waiting sea of expectant faces, he had worked himself up into a proper strop, fueled by his headache and rage, and vibrating with the promise of so much destruction to be wrought, his voice was unleashed in a volcanic boom.
"I've bleeding had it with you lot! If you don't get down there and smash every single shiny glass chunk, I'll let the trucks catch up and gobble up the lot of yous!"
The war cry that went up from the army of equal parts fear and enthusiasm was so loud that Braggett was sure every Yumi would be stopped dead in their tracks. As the tide surged down the passageway once again, he pictured Sigmar's boys paling in fear at the bubbling uproar approaching their lair. Statues shaking and tinkling with distant stomping. The desperate scramble for weapons, not knowing how hopelessly outnumbered they were. Oh, he was going to enjoy this. The mob spilled from the top passage so fast that many of them simply missed the stairs, pouring down the walls, many dying on impact, but countless more swarming past to take their place. Braggett ran at the head of it all, panting hard, suddenly conscious of how easy it would be to get crushed under a stampede of his own creation. Screaming was already belting out from below. The arcane embers glinted across a gathering sea of swords and spears as guards hurried into the square, but anyone with eyes in their head could tell that it wouldn't be enough. Braggett pointed his crescent sickle, calling forth his bad squigs and whooping, as Snosnap drove his squig straight through the first glass pillar. Many squig riders followed suit, getting their mounts all stuck up with glass shards and turning them into spiky wrecking balls. Waves of grots collided with the pathetic Yuumi defense force, and in the time taken to skewer one git, 3 more were leaping onto each guard's back to stab them to death. Braggett struggled up the side of one of the warrior statues just as a mangler squig sent it flying. He rode the toppling statue, cackling all the while, relishing in the reverberating of his own voice as it empowered every greenskin within earshot. He leapt from the glowing glass monument just in time to watch it smash into a group of fleeing civilians. One straggler managed to miss the impact and change direction, but Braggett reached out with his sickle and caught him by the neck, tearing his head clean away. Where each droplet of blood fell, a fresh mushroom pushed its way from the earth with unnatural speed to replace Akshi's brilliance with a dank green glow. All around the cackling grot, the tinkling of shattered glass erupted in a disharmonic symphony. He hurled sets of crystal cups at his own lads to spur them to work faster, screeching with glee every time he hit a bullseye on one of their heads. One of his men stacked boxes of ornaments into a great tower before another swung their giant flail into the side, creating a shrill smash followed by a fountain of shards. Nearby, one of his shamans had stuck his staff into a crack in the main stairs and was pumping them full of spores. The glass groaned and creaked as it filled up with more and more gaseous green fog. Braggett covered his ears just in time for them to explode outwards with a deafening boom. Pieces of stairway shrapnel raining down upon the entire settlement as the air curled with toxic smoke. A group of gits emerged from a nearby ruined hut, their hands stuffed full of glass baubles. Glimmerfly orbs, small animal sculptures, and other strangely shaped items that Braggett didn't recognize.
"Hey boss, can we take this with us?" asked one, waving a piece of orange glass under Braggett's nose. Cantankerous Grot reached for his underling's loot as if to inspect it before smacking it all from his arms. It fell to the rocky ground in a shimmer of exploding shards.
"No, Zopbrain! Are you stupid? It'll waste our—"
Braggett stopped short as his eyes fell upon the other's loot. One of them was clutching a small box of glass bottles.
"How'd you get so many of those?"
he asked, kicking aside the first whining Grot and giving the bottle bearer his full attention. Brewing their fungal elixirs was all well and good, but without something to lug them around in, they slopped out pretty fast. Bottles would be a fine price indeed.
"There were loads of them, boss!"
Bottle Grot grinned.
"They were in boxes like this at the start of the next tunnel. Think they're bound for that Yuumi city, Hammery Aksha. It's full of glass near the realm gate."
The last of the glass sculptures shattered and winked out into total darkness. Slowly, hazily, the cave filled with smothering green moonlight. It illuminated Braggett's face once more, his face shaded by the lunatic gurning of his squig skull helmet.
"You know what, boys? I just had the greatest idea of where we can go next."